Now, from CBS News Miami, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Jim DeFede. The fight over who will control Congress next year is heating up, and we're seeing it in Texas, where Republicans are attempting to redraw congressional lines so they can pick up 5 additional seats. The Democratic governors in California and New York are vowing to retaliate and redraw the House seats in their states to elect more Democrats. And now Florida is threatening to jerry-rig the lines to take out 4 or 5 Democrats. Here's the best way to explain it. Elections should be about voters picking their representatives. But under these plans, the politicians are choosing their voters. They are, to use the president's favorite word, rigging the elections to guarantee an outcome. This level of duplicity is a threat to democracy and will turn us into nothing more than a third world country. It also shows that Republicans are worried their ideas, their policies are so unpopular that they believe such tactics are necessary to hold on to power. We will talk more about this in the weeks ahead, but for now, let's pretend we still have a democracy and focus on the congressional seat currently held by Maria Elvira Salazar. Salazar won re-election easily 2 years ago, but Democrats believe the backlash against Donald Trump could change all that. Right now, there are 4 candidates running for the Democratic nomination. We will talk to all 4 of them in the weeks and months ahead, as well as, I hope, Salazar. But I wanted to start with Robin Peguero, who is the only Hispanic Democrat in the race who is also fluent in Spanish, a significant advantage in a district that is 70% Hispanic.
So it all started with my parents. They came to this country, my dad from the Dominican Republic and my mom from Ecuador. And the first thing they did upon getting here was enlist in the U.S. Army. And so that example of public service has been with me right from the start. It's my origin story. That's where they met. They fell in love, had my sister and me. And they were able from there to build for themselves a working class life in Hialeah. My dad is a school teacher in the public school system. My mother as a mail carrier in the U.S. Postal Service, both proud union members. And so I'm running now because I want to have that ability for other folks to build their lives too, for them to have the opportunity to give to their children what my parents gave to me. And unfortunately, right now, our leaders, including Maria Elvira Salazar, who's my representative, they're not working for us. And we're paying the price, Floridians are, in their paychecks, in their bills, in their day-to-day. Prices are way too high, salaries are way too low, and folks they don't feel as though they can even reach homeownership, right? That's getting later and later in life that folks feel that that's an opportunity for them. And so I think we got to get back to the basics of what government does, which is, provide for the safety of folks, both domestically and abroad, but then also to laser focus on the middle class and providing them relief. And the Congresswoman has not been doing that. Instead, she's been focused on taking healthcare away from folks at a time when the middle class is assaulted on all fronts.
Where did you go to school? And my understanding is you used to work at the state attorney's office. What led you to the state attorney's office, and what did you do while you were there?
Sure. So I went to Barbara Goldman Senior High School, right there on the line between Hialeah and Miami Lakes. I went off to Harvard College and ultimately to Harvard Law School. And as soon as I was done with my studies up north, I came back home to this district, actually, to prosecute, to be part of the Miami State Attorney's Office. Again, because at every point in my life, I only wanted to serve the public and my community. That was my my goal, my objective. And so I was there for 7 years, and I was a homicide prosecutor. So I was a leader in the office, what's called a division chief, in charge of a group of lawyers, and I tried exclusively homicides.
While you were at the state attorney's office, my understanding is you got tapped to be part of the January 6th commission. Talk to me about that, the investigative committee that was put together by the House. You were one of the investigative attorneys on that. How did that come about, and what exactly did you do during that time?
Right. I was happy here in my community prosecuting, and I got this opportunity out of the blue from the chief investigative counsel, who emailed me, who had come across my resume and said, look, we're looking for prosecutors. We need to investigate the first non-peaceful transfer of power in this country's history. And we want folks who have this sort of experience interviewing witnesses, putting evidence together, and instead of presenting it for juries, you'll be presenting it for the court of public opinion, because we need to study this matter and we need to make sure that it never happens again. And so I took up the opportunity. I felt it was historic moment as a staffer myself. I've actually worked in Congress now at this point almost nearly 7 years, from when I was a junior staffer right out of college to ultimately becoming chief of staff for a member, Glenn Ivey from Maryland. And so during this opportunity, I was watching January 6th, and I was mortified by the images that I was watching. And so I definitely wanted to take part of this historic opportunity, and it was an incredible job. It was an incredible time to be able to put together those summer hearings that I think a lot of folks tuned into, and to help write the report. I wrote a chapter of it in an appendix. And so I really think that history will show that work is of critical importance, and we need to look back to make sure that it never happens again.
History may show that in that light, but I know there were a lot of people who believed after January 6th that it was so outrageous, so unacceptable, that Donald Trump was basically going to become a pariah, even within his own party. That did not turn out to be the case. Donald Trump was elected again in 2024. What does that tell you, given what he did during January 6th, given all the things that he's done in terms of election denial, that this country turned around and voted again for Donald Trump? Does it suggest perhaps that you're out of touch with where America is?
No, because I think what they voted for was not what they're seeing today. They voted for lower prices. They voted for politicians or leaders who are going to focus like a laser on the middle class. That they're, again, there's an affront on all sides: home ownership, prices of gas, of groceries, insurance, medical insurance, and home insurance, particularly here in Florida, right? Unaffordable. And that is what they were voting for. And instead, what we got was people like Maria Elvira Salazar, as I mentioned, voting for the big ugly bill, right, that now is law, that will take away healthcare from 1.9 million Floridians in my district, in my community. That's 100,000 people who will wake up one day without Medicare, without Medicaid, without their Affordable Care Act insurance. And they certainly didn't vote to have their friends and neighbors and our colleagues, people who are hardworking, tax-paying immigrants with no criminal records, to have them plucked from the streets without due process and thrown into this Everglades detention center, which is not a serious solution to the issue of immigration. They voted for the deportation of violent criminals. They voted for the securing of our border, but not what's happening today, which is this complete indiscriminate swallowing of so many folks into the system. And again, that center down in the Everglades, throwing in U.S. citizens for sometimes days at a time, veterans, even a minor the other day. Not at all. This is not what people voted for. They voted for something very specific in the last election.
Why do you think the Democratic Party has fallen in such disfavor with the public overall?
I think we got to get back to the basics, as I mentioned. Government needs to do no harm, and actively they're doing harm at this point, right? While the Congresswoman, she stands silent while people in our community are being deported, right? She talks about cages without flinching. She mentions, and they are cages that these folks are being put into. And the other day she called it pretty good, the conditions in those quote unquote cages. These are human beings, right? Dignity means something. It's an actual word that perhaps you should look up. We need to treat these folks with dignity. And I don't think that we're doing that currently, right? And so I think the Democratic Party needs to talk about our values. We need to get back to pocketbook issues. We need to call out the president and people like Maria Elvira Salazar when they are standing by and doing nothing while people in our community are suffering. And I think if we focus on those concerns, then I think we'll be reflecting and channeling what the electorate really wants.
She would argue that she is trying to do something. She's offered legislation. You made reference to looking up the word dignity. She has what she calls the Dignity Act, which would allow for those who are undocumented, who have no criminal history, to remain in the United States for up to 7 years, essentially as workers here in the community. Isn't that offering something?
So every Congress, she puts the same bill in every Congress. It goes absolutely nowhere. She knows that the leaders of her party will not pay attention to her like they have in the past. This is complete lip service. Or, it's a politician who's weak and ineffective, right? She's either doing it just to feign interest in an issue that she knows will go nowhere, and she has no power within her party. She's a voiceless, basically, in her party to get anything done. She's basically delegated the matter entirely to the president. She was in interviews saying that, he gets it, was her quote, President Trump, and said that it's really up to him. She actually literally said, it has nothing to do with me. It's her job. So she should step aside if she doesn't want to do her job and call out the president and defend people in her community who are being deported without due process. The other day, again, she called President Trump the Lincoln. She said that he will do for immigration what Lincoln did for slavery. I don't even understand the analogy. She seems to acknowledge that what is going on, the sort of lawless deportations, due process being violated, is akin to slavery. And yet she puts all her faith and trust in one person. A lot of people in my community, they fled from political violence. They fled from dictatorships, Cubans, Venezuelans. And instead, Maria Elvira Salazar, she's fawning over dear leader here, her president, right? And is in complete lockstep with him and never breaks, never calls him out for the harm that he's doing in the community. And I think that's problematic.
We talked a little bit before about immigration enforcement, and I'm curious as to your reaction when you see these ICE raids that are taking place, particularly some of the videos of vans of masked agents pulling up and grabbing people, whether it's in courthouses where they're going through their immigration process, or at farms, or at construction job sites, or at Home Depots. What's your reaction to the way ICE is conducting itself these days?
Yeah, it's abhorrent. As you mentioned, these folks aren't violent criminals. In fact, many of them, the studies have shown, no criminal record whatsoever. And yet they're being plucked off the streets, again, without due process. I was a prosecutor. I believe in the rule of law. It's why I went to go serve on the January 6th committee, because ultimately, no matter what the result was in a trial, if it was not guilty or guilty, I felt confident in the result. The result was legitimate based on the rules that we had established beforehand. And this president and Congresswoman Salazar, by standing by and being silent while it goes on, they are allowing this lawlessness. And it's unfortunate. It's horrible. So I think there's a moral issue here that we have to call out, but there's also an economic issue. These folks are contributing to our economy. Again, folks who have no criminal record, who have been paying their taxes, our agricultural sector, so many different sectors of our economy will collapse when prices will climb even higher if we continue to indiscriminately deport folks, send them at times even to countries where they're not even from. It's complete lawlessness. It's complete chaos. And instead, the administration is focused on photo ops. They're focused on PR gimmicks with so-called alligator Alcatraz. That is not treating the immigration system seriously. We need to fix it. It is broken. We need to secure our borders. We need to deport violent criminals. And we need to stop what we're doing with hardworking, tax-paying immigrants and provide them a pathway to citizenship.
When we come back, we meet the woman who hopes to unseat State Representative Fabian Basabe. Stay with us.